Welcome back to another episode of the Military Money Manual Podcast. I'm here with Jen today from Wives of the Armed Forces, and we're going to be talking about deployments. We're going to be talking about how you can support your military spouse, your military significant other, whether it's a wife, whether it's a husband, whether it's a partner, whether it's a girlfriend or a boyfriend, and not so much the person who's going out the door on the deployment, but the person who's staying home, because they need support too. And so we're going to be talking about coming up with a plan, coming up with how you can buy some backup for yourself. And then we'll get into some of the tactical stuff. If you're in the reserves, this might be your first deployment in a couple of years, and maybe you've forgotten a few things. So we'll get into those details as well. Jen, thanks for joining us on the podcast. What are you guys working on over at Wives of the Armed Forces?
Thanks for having me. And listen, I'm ready to learn today, because I feel like if there's one thing about military life, it's that you never hit a point where you're like, okay, I actually have this. Like, you're constantly learning, constantly being tested, working out new muscles. Wives of the Armed Forces, we started this community back in 2018, me and my friend Kirsten, on her couch as movers were packing up her house for her first PCS. And we just realized that military life was very different from what we saw online. We saw a lot of doom and gloom, a lot of, okay, and now your life's over, so just like don't even bother getting started. And we realized in the time, Spencer and I were talking before this about the ops tempo at the time was insane, and our guys were going constantly. And so we found that while they were living up in Germany, we were living it up at our home station. And at the time, it was JBLM in Washington. We were exploring things, having a great time, and learning a ton along the way. And we thought, how cool if we could just make this a big community of military spouses who feel empowered instead of put down by this lifestyle. And so that we started back with Wives of the Air Force. And then a few years ago, after a lot of community input, we changed to Wives of the Armed Forces so that we could help the broader military community. And now it has just turned into like this whole beast. In the last few months, we are working towards doing Wives of the Armed Forces IRL. So we're on Instagram, we have a blog, all the things, but now we're about in-person connections, because we're so grateful for technology, for connecting military spouses, like such a game changer. I can't even imagine what life was like as a military spouse before technology. But now, how can we take that from being online into in-person connections? And military is a small world. So then how can we crisscross that and get everybody feeling empowered along the way?
I love that, because military life can be very isolating. And with the rise of artificial intelligence and social media, we're going to be even further and further isolated. And you're going to be getting the simulation of human connection through these, chat bots, and through these, pretty soon we're going to have like the little thing in your ear, right, that you can talk to all the time. And it's going to be your best friend, but it's not going to be real, right? It's not going to be a face, a human in front of you that you can connect with on an emotional level, and that has actually been through the same experiences that maybe you're going through now or that you will go through. I love that you're not only connecting military spouses online, but you're creating a place where, hey, let's put our phones down and let's talk, right? Let's go get a cup of coffee. Let's have a drink. Let's meet up for dinner. And, when you get to a new duty station as a military service member, the military is basically like, hey, here's your unit, here's your squadron, here's your company. Here are 2 or 3 of these guys or gals are going to be your best friends in the next 2 years. But on the military spouse side, it's kind of like, okay, where do I find my friends? Where do I find a community in a network? And you have to rebuild it every single time. I remember when my wife, we got to first Oconus duty station. And she said to me, we were only going to be there for 2 years. And she said to me, I don't want to meet anybody. I don't want to make any friends. I'm sick. I'm sick of it, because every single time I make the best friends of my life, and then 2 or 3 years later, I have to say goodbye to them. And sure enough, after a year, she had made another one of her, the best friends of her life.
And that's the curse. So how many times have we made our best friends at this duty station 3 months before we're on the way or on our way out? Yeah. It is so painful. But you think about it, like whenever your spouse is deployed, which is what we're going to be talking about today, and you're connecting with your spouse over the phone, and that is not the same. All you want is to be able to sit next to somebody, sit next to your partner, and just see through your eyes life together. And so, yeah, definitely trying to make that shift happen. I think especially post-COVID, it's like heading into COVID, we were heading into this scene in the military spouse space that was very divided. The old heads, I'm going to say, all
Yeah.
wanted that in-person connection, all wanted the old school spouse group with the very scheduled meetups. And the new wave that was coming in that was very resistant to that, I think COVID caused everyone to be like, okay, actually, no, we really need this. So we're hoping to start to see the shift. And again, with kind of the world events that are happening right now, as sucky as the thrash can be on the south side of the house, if there's one good thing that can come out of it, it's finding community whenever you're thrown into that. So we're trying to really spread the word.
I love that. I love what you're doing there. So what I wanted to have you on the show, Jen, to talk about today is the world is crazy, right? And even if, this current conflict in the Middle East ends tomorrow, something else will happen in a year, in 2 years, in 4 years. That is the nature of having a volunteer military, is that our country uses it frequently as kind of a world police. And what I wanted to have you on today to talk about is how can military spouses set themselves up? Like, let's say that they've got a deployment coming up in a week or two, and they're probably in, kind of like a panic mode, right? They might even be deer in the headlights, frozen, because they don't know like what the next best step to take is.
It's a really hard position to be in because you are battling with your brain versus your heart at that time. Like, there's definitely a time that you need to be able to sit in those feelings and acknowledge them. We don't just want to stuff it down. And listen, this is a letter from me to me. Like, I need to take my own advice here, but really allowing yourself that space to grieve, mourn, whatever it is, get through it. And then you can start on that action. We like to give ourselves 24 hours to really sit in it. And then the next steps are really just looking at, okay, I've got 5 days. What are we going to do? What do we need to button up in our space around us? Or what do I need to make this easier on me moving forward? And a lot of times that can look like looking at what kind of help you need. And we were talking before we got started, there are two. And so I think we probably need to speak to the two different camps going into deployment. The camp of, okay, we are going to put our heads down and use this time to build wealth, and we're going to grind. I mean, sometimes whenever my husband's gone, I'm like, okay, my grocery bill is immediately lower because we do not need to provide 8 to 12 ounces of protein for this man to eat 3 to 4 times a day. That is going to significantly cut my grocery budget, and I am so grateful for that. So looking at deployment through that lens of how can we save, or I'm currently in a position of having 4 small children, and as painful as it is for me to understand about myself, I just can't get through this without some support. I can't come out on the other side unscathed without support. And sometimes paid support is better. It just is. I personally feel so much more comfortable saying, hey, X, Y, and Z needs to be done if I am paying for it versus if I'm constantly burning through family, which we do not have nearby. But can you fly out here? All that. It can get a little bit more complicated that way. So being able to look at it through that lens as well is important.
Yeah, I think a couple of just like the tactical, practical things that military spouses can be thinking about is, number one, your deployed service member is going to probably be touching a combat zone tax exclusion area. So they're gonna their taxable income is gonna drop, which means their taxes are gonna drop, which means you're gonna be getting more in every paycheck. In addition to that, they might be receiving per diem, right? They might be, depending on what location they're in and what their situation is, it might be as little as $350 a day. In that case, okay, doesn't really move the needle. But I know some people who are deployed currently supporting operations in places that are getting $100 or $120 or $150 a day. That can go a long way. And I think it deserves a conversation with the deployed service member of, okay, how much do you need to purchase your food, right? And they might say, oh, it's actually quite expensive here. So maybe $50 to $60 a day. You're right. That leaves $100 left over. And I want to take half of that, $50 a day. I want to be able to support myself, put on my own oxygen mask first while I'm on the home front. And that might be something like hiring a cleaner. Like maybe you have someone to come in once a week every 2 weeks to clean your house. And that's just one less thing that you have to worry about. Maybe it's hiring help, like you said, a babysitter. Maybe it's getting your groceries delivered, right? Like maybe it's if you have an older kid, maybe you put them in an Uber to get to a soccer practice, right? Is it crazy? Is it extravagant? Yes. But is that what you need right now? Just in this short period of time, right? We're not saying you do this forever. We're not saying that this becomes the new normal, but it's just saying, look, these are extraordinary, beyond ordinary circumstances for the next 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 months, whatever the time period is. What resources do we have to throw money at this problem to make our lives easier so that we come out the other side happier, healthier, more loving? And also that we're not building resentment against each other, right? Because there's always this push and pull of, oh, you don't know how hard it is out here, right?
Yeah.
But the spouse might also be saying, well, you don't know how hard it is managing a household by myself.
I want to walk through some of the things that I'm thinking about for myself, for anybody else who might be in my shoes. And again, hear me loud and clear, I feel very extravagant. So it is hard for me to admit this and hard to admit that I need help. But when I think about, okay, I am balancing raising all of these kids and I work at least part-time, could work full-time if I really looked at it honestly. And then I'm also at the same time, trying to be a present parent. And that is really hard. And I'm trying to actually be 2 present parents to allow myself that. Again, like I see, it sounds like a luxury, but when really at the end of the day, I'm just trying to be a happy mom and wife, a distant wife, you see a little bit more purpose to it. But before I forget, after, I want you to talk more about the crew aspect of things, because I think a lot of people hear that peer pressure conversation with the crew mentality when they're overseas. So I am leaning on my neighbors. And so if you're in it right now, you might think, well, crap, I don't know my neighbors at all. Honestly, might be a good time to start getting in your front lawn and shaking some hands, because these are just extraordinary measures that you have to take, honestly, as military spouses. And I think that you get a little bit of a pass whenever you're in situations like this to just go up to people. And I'm not saying violate OPSEC and PERSEC, but going up to people and just being like, hey, how's it going? We're a military family. Maybe stick an American flag out of your house and that'll start some conversations right there. But getting to know the people around you, because that is something that I'm going to be leaning on. I thankfully have some neighbors that immediately offered to mow my lawn. Someone offered to do my laundry, definitely brought me to tears. We are having those same people come and do an evening shutdown in my house, because I'm going to do my 1.5-hour bedtime routine with my children. And with all the feelings along the way, there's no way for me to shorten it so I can come down and do dishes. So if I can just have help, and I am 100% willing to pay for that help if my neighbor offering does not work, and just to pivot along the way. So being open to being flexible about some of these plans. And then we are hiring a nanny to come in and help for just a few hours a day. And something that was incredible that my husband said to me is that even if I just sit on the couch and drink coffee while the nanny is here, that is an acceptable use of our dollars. And
absolutely. Yeah.
I was like, what? Yeah. You don't want me to go edge the yard or power wash the driveway? Come on. All of those things I'm hoping. I definitely do grocery delivery, and you can talk about this, but Walmart Plus grocery delivery, the closest Walmart to us is 25 minutes away and over a toll bridge. They still will drive it to me. I will pay a tip on that, but the Walmart Plus is covered with Amex. So
that's right.
Easy.
Yeah. One of the things you just said there is if the nanny comes over, you just sit on the couch and drink coffee. In America, right, we have this Protestant work ethic. We have this idea that rest is laziness, right? I think for the last couple of years, people have been hammering this home, right? Where sleep is not a luxury. Sleep is necessary so that you are well rested, so that you can go perform your duties. If you hire a nanny and you just sit on the couch on your phone for an hour, decompressing, drinking a cup of coffee, that's going to enable you then the next day or later that day or some other point, when you have the energy, you're going to go power wash the thing, or you're going to go clean the thing, right, or you're going to go run that errand or take the kid to the doctors, whatever it is. It's not being lazy. It's just conserving your energy and resting and rejuvenating so that then you can be the present parent that you want to be. And I think we have to get away from this idea that like, you're like, oh, the service members over there, busting their ass and you're just sitting at home and you're hiring all this help. And it's like, dude, you switch places. You raise 4 kids under 6 years old. Come on, you try it. See how easy it is. And there's plenty of resources if you're living on base, like the CDC and such. But I know care.com is a good place to kind of recruit vetted caregivers, nannies. Is there any other websites that or apps that you found?
Well, in care.com, I'm pretty sure it's been a while, but I'm pretty sure that it's free or at least discounted for military families.
Oh, amazing.
And then there is also, you get a certain amount of hours at not the CDC, but on base through the MWR for childcare whenever you have a deployed service member. There was one other thing, but it is escaping my brain. I saw it recently. And so we're not going to be able to, don't remember what this is called, but I actually learned about it very recently. If your spouse is on orders, you can get money that goes towards an activity for one of your kids, not just one of your kids, all of your kids. It's like up to $300. Don't quote me on that. We need to find what this is. But the whole point is like whenever the family deploys, things can get really overwhelming. And again, you can start looking at where you're going to pinch pennies. But just because dad's gone doesn't mean that somebody needs to sacrifice their activity, something that really gives them a sort of identity at the time or a distraction at least. And so this organization will give you kind of like no questions asked, this stipend for an activity for each of your kids.
And like get them to the bounce house, right? Like, the trampoline park, like just like get some energy out, get going.
Right. Things that I love to do because I've got littles. So my kids are 6 and under. The oldest is in kindergarten. But in seasons when my husband's been gone for long stints of time, and there's just that natural feeling of like unsettled. And again, like kind of back to that PERSEC, you're just on red alert whenever it's just you. And so going to on base playgrounds was a godsend for me. I just feel a little bit safer, a little bit more contained. And that was me in Alaska. Like I was okay. Even with the bears, I was like, I'll take a bear over just a random stranger. So if I can do it, you can do it, guys. But really leaning on the on base aspect of things is really helpful. I know here at JBLM, there is they partnered with the Children's Museum to make the first ever children's museum on a military base.
Wow.
And I know. And it's epic. So really leaning into the on-base resources is huge.
That's awesome. Yeah. One thing that you mentioned there about like leaning on your neighbors, leaning on your family. I can't remember what book it was in, but there's been some research done around one of the best ways to get someone to like you is to ask them to do a favor, which is counterintuitive, right?
Oh.
But people love being useful. Maybe don't do it straight away, right? But when you introduce yourselves to your neighbors and you say, oh yeah, and we're a military family, right? And you start that conversation. And then maybe the next time it's like, hey, I have this thing. Could you help me out? It would just take like 15 minutes of your time or whatever. Most people love being useful and love helping people, love helping their neighbors. And so I think, we have this stigma around like asking for help or asking for a favor. But if it's something small and they seem excited about it, yeah, I think it's a great way to break the ice and to get to know your neighbors better.
I mean, think about it. If you were the person offering and you even have to build yourself up a little bit into that, like, okay, do I think that this would be helpful? Am I overstepping if I ask? And then you go out on a limb and you offer. And then the person says, no, I'm good. I don't need anything. Then you're just like a deflated balloon. So I am really challenging myself in this season to say yes. I mean, when my husband's not flying for the reserves, he's a commercial airline pilot. So he is just, they sit in the plane and they gab for hours and hours on end with this guy. So my husband was flying with the captain a few weeks ago and just telling him about what's going on. And this guy was prior Coast Guard. The next day, he was like, hey, I was talking to my wife about what is going on with you guys. And she reminded me of this old neighbor lady that helped us out when we had 3 young kids. And we live in your town and my wife would love to help out. This is strange. I've never even met this woman before. And I just told my husband, we need to say yes. We need to find a way for this woman to fit, even if it's an extravagance for me at this point, because hearing loud and clear, I never expected this much support in the reserves. People say that all the time. When you're a reservist or a guardsman, like you don't have that military community. You might not, but when you open yourself up for people to come in and make these offers, I am really challenging myself to take them and not feel like an inconvenience for doing that. Because again, like I could be building connections, giving someone else purpose in their day, which, you know, makes me feel better about asking and not burdening somebody.
Yeah, what a gift to give them, right? To give them a bit of purpose and meaning, and to say, hey, I really appreciate you, right? Like you are adding so much value to my life right now. And people love that, right? And like you I mean, you know, some people, they need to charge for it because they need to feed their families. The spouse, the wife of a commercial airline captain probably doesn't need to
they're good. They're
be compensated for. Yeah, they're good. So,
it's great.
You know,
like,
and I think
what it's all about, connection.
Yeah. And I think that when you're in the reserves and you're in the guard, right, there is that, you do feel a little disconnect. You kind of feel like you're in that gray space, right? You're not quite a civilian. You're not quite military. But actually that could open up more opportunities because you might have a larger network where you do have your military family, but then you also have your neighbors and you also have your civilian connections as well. And everybody's, you know, loves to say, hey, thank you for your service. And it's like, are you actually thankful for my service? Because here's something that you can do for me tangibly. Yeah, you can show it.
Exactly. There was a mom in my daughter's kindergarten class. So it was such a bummer. When the news first came out that they were probably going to deploy the reserves, you're thinking, I really hope it's not me. I hope it's not my family, that I don't have to go through this. And then I send my daughter to school thinking, how am I going to tell her teacher to expect the worst out of this child because her dad's about to deploy? And then I find out, no, he's not deploying, but another kid in her class, his dad got chosen instead. And it's just like, that's so hard. But so now I'm able to resonate with this other military spouse. We're the only 2 military spouses in this entire class. And they sent out the meal train. And I'm like, okay, I'm ready to go. Like, I know how to support a meal train. I've got history with this. And then life hit me like a ton of bricks. And I was like, actually, I no longer can do this. And it was so hard for me to accept that. So anyway, I talked to her. And I'm apologizing because I feel so terrible. And she was so wise. And she turned to me and she's like, do not feel bad about being too strapped with your kids while you're solo parenting to come and support me. Let these other civilians who've never experienced this, who have their husbands home every single night, let them come and help me. And I was just so grateful for that because I felt so terrible. But she's so right. And exactly to your point, like, if you want to say thank you for my service, then please show me and how you can help my family. Yes.
Yeah. I love that.
But back to what I was saying earlier with, if you're having this financial conversation and you're having to look at the per diem and they say like, okay, but I don't want to be, what was it called? A slam clicker? Was that it? Whenever someone just like goes to their hotel room. I don't want to be that. I want to be a bump on log in with the crew. Everyone's going out. We're going to go out and we're going to slam like 8 beers.
Yeah.
How do you have that conversation? Everyone has the Amex. They're playing freaking credit card roulette. And you're like, you cannot do this.
When I was a younger lieutenant, right, and I had the young wife at home, same wife that I have now, but she was younger then. We had that conversation, right, where she would be like, you made $700, $1,000 on this trip. You spent $500 on food and booze and, you know, whatever other activities you were doing. So that's your $500. Like when you get home, that was your $500, and now I get the other $500. But you just have to set the I think this is one of the critical things is you have to set the expectation of, okay, whose money is this, right? Is this going into the pot of like all our money? Or is this the deployed person's money? And I'm sure some like Army and Marines listening to this are gonna be like, what? What is per diem? This is such an Air Force pilot thing. But it does beg the question, right? It's like, okay, and I think you just put it on the service member. Not all of it, but you just say, look, I'm at home with 4 kids and I need to spend a little bit more money to support myself over the next couple of months. How much do you need? Like, how much do 8 beers cost, right, in Germany? and you're like, I don't know, 40 euros or whatever. It's like, right. Okay. So your budget is $50 a day. Or like, what do you think is a reasonable budget for yourself? Right. And it might be, well, we're making $100 a day. So maybe I'll take 40, you have 40 to go spend on whatever else you want. And then we'll just have 20 that goes into like savings. Right. Or we use that to plus up. Having been that person who is on the crew, right, and who doesn't want to be the slam clicker, because this is part of it, right? This is part of the lifestyle is, hey, like we're going to work hard and we're going to play hard. It depends, right? So if you're the senior major or the lieutenant colonel who's making good money, and maybe you're coming off of a, commercial airline job where you're making multiples of what you would on active duty, maybe you say like, look, all the per diem goes to support us. I'm going to have my own little pot of money over here. And that's like, maybe it's whatever, maybe it's $500 a week, right? And like, that's my budget. And I can spend that however I want, but I do have to like put a little bit of limitations on myself because I want to make sure that the spouse who's on the home front doesn't feel constricted, doesn't feel restrained, and doesn't, when you call, it's morning your time and you call your partner who's over in Germany, they say, oh yeah, I'm at the meter bar again. And you're like, wow, must be nice, man.
Right.
It's like, I just had a kid throw up on me. Johnny just broke his arm. Like, it's chaos over here. And sounds like you're having a great time. And you don't want to build that resentment. You don't want to resent that they're having a good time. But at the same time, you also want to acknowledge like, well, what are they, what's the alternative? Like, do you want them to just sit in their room and,
totally
work on their master's degree? No, probably not. So,
right. Yeah. I think it's a larger conversation for sure. And I think that every time someone brings that issue up, it's like, okay, this is a baseline communication problem here. Y'all just need to be openly communicating. I mean, the number of times that, it's been just like a little stopover in Hawaii that turns into a 14-day break. Suddenly we're swimming with turtles and you're like, okay, hold on. What's going on here?
That was one of mine when we got to St. Croix in the U.S. Virgin Islands. We were only supposed to stop for gas and we ended up being broken there for 9 days. And my poor wife's at home and she's like, you're on this like 9-day vacation. I'm sitting here in a Tacoma winter. And you're making, $100. Like, do I get any of this? And so one of the best books, and actually this was something that we did during COVID. We were separated for a couple months during COVID. We worked through John Gottman's 7 Principles for Making Marriage Work, I think is what it's called. And there's a bunch of exercises in there. And we just did it remotely. Like we would, I would send her the questions and then she would give me her responses. I would put my responses in and then we would like do a video chat and we would so we worked our way through that book. The other one that, because this per diem question, I think is a really great question for military families. Ramit Sethi's Money for Couples,
nice,
I think is one of the best books about having money conversations and not just ignoring it, right? Not just like sweeping it under the rug. For the deployed service member, I think that there's a lot of trust, right? Being in a long distance relationship and being separated, and I think that there's an opportunity here to actually like come out of a deployment in a stronger position, right? With like more trust and more understanding of what you want, what your partner wants, and then just making sure that you have a shared vision, a shared goal of like, hey, is this per diem for me to go out partying with my friends? Or maybe only a third of it is, and a third of it's for my spouse I left at home, and then a third of it is for us to pay off of our car loan, right? Or to build our TSP balance.
And being able to look at it through the lens of like, you're a team, whether you're in the same town or apart because of a TDY or a deployment. And so just like you would at home with the to-do list at home, like you try not to be tit for tat, like same financially. And we did a marriage counseling thing where they were just saying, basically, you want to live in service to your partner. And if you have that mindset of I'm doing this out of service to my partner, then you're not thinking, what are they doing out of service to me? Because I'm just thinking about them. If I can be thinking about them as much as possible, like we're going to grow closer together. And hopefully you're on the same page in that sense. And so same thing financially, like, and I think I have to take a dose of that medicine too. Again, whenever he tries to say like, we can spend money on you. And I'm like, I'm not used to this. I'm used to this spending money on you, but to this point, you are working so hard. If all you need at the end of the day is that beer in Germany and to go out with the crew, then that is great. And that is going to move us as a couple forward because exactly, like, you're not just being isolated out there. I mean, you're already away from home. You're already away from your family, which is definitely something that we like to talk about. Like, yes, it's very easy to say like, okay, well, you're not hung up with all these kids and you're not exhausted by them, but you know what they would give to be with their kid or to be at home. And I mean, it can be hard whether you have kids or don't have kids.
Just a quick note from one of our sponsors, and then we'll be right back to the show.
Hey, Spencer, I got a cousin that just graduated from high school and they're about to start basic training in a few months. Any ideas on a gift I should get him?
Yep, sure do, Jamie. The Military Money Manual, A Practical Guide to Financial Freedom, is a concise, easy to read, and practical guide to your military money. It's the book that I wish someone had handed me on my first day in the military. In the book, I explain the exact money tactics and investing strategies that can enable you to achieve financial independence while serving in the U.S. military. It's available on Amazon, Audible, and my website. It's hardcover, paperback, ebook, Kindle, and audiobook. You can get a special discount using promo code podcast on my website, shop.militarymoneymanual.com.
I remember talking to some Marine V-22 Osprey pilots. They were just sleeping like in a hammock, right, on the back of their plane, and then they were like, "Okay, it's time to go." And like that was our crew rest. Like we got our 8 hours. You know, like
dang.
That was like every day for like a month. You know, like and they didn't. You know, they had like a toilet like off in the corner, and it's just a different. We're so spoiled in the Air Force. We're so
totally. Which is we were so intimidated to branch out to full armed forces because we're like, no way. I mean, even just Air Force, like pilot. And it's both of us. So neither of us have any other experience. It's like, I don't know. People were like, no, we would feel seen if you branched out.
Well, I think the critical thing to understand, right, is like not everybody's situation is the same, but there's a lot of it that rhymes. And, you know, if you're a military spouse who got married right out of high school and your first duty station is outside of El Paso, Texas, right? Like you are just going to have a very different experience than the wife or husband of an 06 in the Navy, right? That's in charge of a battle group, right? Like, and stationed in Virginia, right? Like, but there's a lot of similarities between all the branches, right? Between all the experiences, right? There's like some commonalities are the uncertainty, right? And the anxieties that pop up when you don't know what's going to happen and when it's going to happen. But you do know that in general, you're going to get paid on the 1st and the 15th of every month. And you're probably going to have to move every 2 to 3 years.
Yeah. And I think that could be something that's good to talk about. Just like if we're baseline, we're looking at this as like a budgeting thing because, you hear that a lot. Like, well, you've always been an officer spouse. And it's like, I mean, but it could be an officer spouse with a working spouse and they could be $130,000 in debt and you have no idea. Like, he's got a decent income coming in, but maybe his lifestyle is not one that somebody else would want to duplicate. So like how to pinch those pennies whenever you are lower enlisted and
and that's the thing is that it's not a function of income. Actually, I saw a study the other day or a survey the other day, and it was people making over $500,000 a year, and something like 40% of them checked the box for I'm living paycheck to paycheck. I can't make any progress in my financial goals. And that's just because if they're making $500,000 a year and their lifestyle is $550,000 a year, you're going backwards. Like, it's very, and that's the thing that people, I kind of didn't even understand this when I was starting off as a lieutenant making, $40,000, $50,000 a year, that your lifestyle basically just expands to your income, right? And that's true, or contracts. And that's true for just about everyone. Now, I've been lucky in that as I promoted right through the military, and then on the other side, as I grow my business, my income has been increasing or flat year to year, but I've never really seen a substantial decrease, right? But it's interesting when you talk to people, because a lot of times they're afraid that, okay, their lifestyle, their income's going to decrease and they'll have to decrease their lifestyle. But I always just like point back to like, well, what did you do when you were a lieutenant, or what did you do when you were in college, right? Like you just made it work. Your lifestyle fit your income. And if it didn't, you built credit card debt. But a lot of people now realize like, I never want to touch credit card debt. So you'll just adapt, right? Like, and if that means you have to downsize your home, or you have to find a cheaper rental, or whatever it is, I always just try to encourage people that like, you'll figure it out. You can be flexible. You've been here before and you don't want to go back there. So you have the motivation to, to hustle and to make some more money, keep your money invested. But I always try to encourage people like, what did you do 10 years ago when you were making half of what you do now? And they're like, oh, I was fine. I was happy, right? We had a good life. And I was like, okay. Good.
Yeah. I mean, it is really sneaky because we just did our year one of airline life, and that was like a 60% decrease because we were coming from an OCONUS assignment. So in addition to his base pay, which everyone was like, we won't hit his base pay plus OCONUS pay in the airlines until year 3, and we're year 2 now. And so going to year 1, I was like, wow, this is absolutely insane. And like, you get hit with so many more taxes than whenever you're active duty because of BAH, I never even computed that before. And so really having to look through things of, I'm suddenly watching what kind of fruit I'm buying at Costco. It's really small, sneaky things, but also I really leaned on Rocket Money. I loved just checking in on that. I mean, if you're going to gamify your finances, I think that probably helps a little bit, take some of the personal, emotional side out of it. But I heard someone say, like, if you're not, they said, and you've probably heard this because I think it's someone who's big in the finance space, but she said, money is like a mistress, and if you don't watch her, she'll leave you. And it is so true. Like, I am watching my finances every single day, and I'm like, how am I, just by looking at my money, how am I saving thousands of dollars? Thousands. Painful. And I think that's another thing, like when you're talking about the spouse who's gone versus the spouse that's home. So now the spouse that's gone, like, okay, they've got their parties is not the right word, but their events that they might go on, their excursions with their crew or whatnot. You're at home and you are suddenly the finance manager of your family because they're most likely not emotional buying like you are. And so to really take into account and feel that sense of pride and ownership in that versus guilt and shame. There's times that personally, and I feel my dad is a finance manager. So like, I feel very comfortable talking about finances. And even still, if my husband comes to me, he's like, have we checked our budget in a few months? I'm like, how about we don't check the last 2 months? And how about from here on out in this month, I will check this month. Please do not open my shame. I would rather not. Just know what's in the past is in the past, and I'll be better moving forward. And I don't know. So that works for us. That might not be certified advice, but.
And I think that actually this is a good time. We've talked about this before. From that book, Ramit Sethi's Money for Couples, he promotes, and on his show, his podcast, which is great. You should go check it out. It'll make for some great listening while you got time to kill. But he talks about the monthly money meeting. And I think this can actually be even more important during a deployment than when you're home station, right? Like it's equal. It's important when you're home station as well. But the service member might feel very disconnected and from kind of like what's happening day to day. And, there's always the quintessential argument, right, is Target, right? Like you went to Target and you spent how much? And
it's for the house. It's for the house.
Exactly.
I bought paper towels. I'm always like, I don't know. At Costco, I spent over $200 because I bought paper towels. Like, how much are paper towels? Enough to make over $200.
But, what I would say to the person who's questioning the Target or the Costco budget, right, is like, you go do it. You go do it once and you see how much things cost these days. Because a lot of times, people have this, mistaken impression that, paper towels are $1, right? Like, no, dude, they're like $5 or $6 now. And,
per roll.
Per roll. And then, they might think, how much can toilet paper possibly cost? Or how much, how much can it possibly cost to run a household with 6 humans in it, right? 4 of whom are under 6 years old. And it's like, no, it actually costs quite a bit. So unless you're the one going and doing the shopping, and you don't have to do it every time, but just go do it once, right? And you see how expensive things cost and recognize that like, it's not the $20 candle that you're throwing in there because you're like, I just want a candle in my house, right? That's not what's breaking the budget. It's the fact that you're supporting 2 adult humans and 4 tiny humans, and it's expensive, right? It is like whenever I'm talking to couples and it always comes up like, oh, she goes to Target, she goes to Costco, he goes to Costco, and it's, they spend this much. And it's like, are they bringing home a surfboard every time? It's like, no, they only did that once, right? And it's like,
Right.
And it's like, okay, so they're not bringing home a surfboard every time. So, where is the money leakage here? And a lot of times, if you look at the receipt, like there's none, right? It's just, this is just what it costs to have the lifestyle that you were choosing to live. And sure, you could go shop at Aldi, you could go shop somewhere else and maybe save a little bit, but we're not talking about like buying a new Tesla every year. We're not talking about a $10,000 vacation every month. We're just talking about like literally the bare necessities here. But also beyond the bare necessities, sometimes you're like, look, I want my kids to eat organic, right?
Yep.
That is a value of mine, and that costs this much. And if your spouse can't sign off on that, that needs to be a conversation of values where you say, look, this is very important to me. I want our kids to be eating organic food. And if they say, nah, like I was fine on beans and macaroni and cheese, with yellow 5 in it, you're like, all right, man, like that's your normal, but we're a team. We're a team here.
Yeah, it's really important for my husband that our kids do eat as organic as possible. And I have to show him this is how much that's going to cost. Obviously, our mindset is we're hoping that means less medical bills later. So finding a give and take. And I think also, again, as somebody, I say that we're always living in a college mindset. And I lived off of $25 a week in college. So it's very hard for me to have to look at my budget and be like, oh my goodness. Yeah, again, like these humans, they cost so much money and this one doesn't even eat food. But being able to look at what our budget is and still manage like 1 or 2 little happy in the month, if possible. Now, if you're like, no, literally this month is our grind month, then this month's your grind month, and that's great. But I know that I call my husband Pooh Bear, and he wants to be able to eat yummy food, and he doesn't always want to be cooking it. So I know I can't say we're not going to eat out this month because it's just not going to happen. There's going to be a revolt. And so I will limit it to like 2 times a month. So every other week we get an eating out experience, especially with a family this big. It's freaking expensive. So can't do more than that. Whenever I'm solo, I mean, I will allow myself like a 1 drive-through coffee situation a week. And then you prize and you cherish that. But on the flip side, like the give and take, it's so easy to do those convenience meals and be like, I just like don't want to cook again tonight. Last month, I made 32 freezer meals for myself. It was like 3 recipes. I did it mostly in the slow cooker. It was super easy. And then I pre-portioned them out and labeled them and everything and just stocked my freezer. So even aside from not just buying takeout, I'm also not buying a $6 to $7 pre-made freezer meal. With all the crap in it and everything, I have made this at home myself, and it probably cost me like $2.50 per.
That's amazing. There's lots of different tactical kind of steps you can take. But I think, of course, as the husband or wife is going out the door, the last thing you want to be having is like another money fight, right? About Target.
Totally.
But I think this is why have a read of the book, Money for Couples by Ramit Sethi. And one of the things he talks in there about is have a positive money conversation. Just for once in your life, just be like, hey, we managed to save 20% last month. Isn't that great? And that's it. That's the conversation. And your partner's like, oh, wow, that was great. And then you just end it, right? And then maybe a week later you say, hey, I wanted to have this other conversation about, some of our values, and like we're spending money here, or like the credit card statement came in and it looks like you spent $1,000 a week on going out in Germany. Just checking that like that's one of your values, like because that's taking money away from your children. So just wondering where, maybe $500 a week is the right number, or $200 a week. But we're not saying that you can't go out and have 10 beers with the bros and the broettes, but we are saying that like, look, there are finite resources that we have, and we have values that are competing, right? And so one of those values might be family. It might be providing for your children. It might be living debt-free, saving and investing, becoming financially independent. Well, on the other side, you have the value of like being social and having fun and, relaxing after like a hard week. Those values don't necessarily have to be in conflict, but you just have to say, okay, which one of these is more important? And we're going to make sure that we have A, B, and C covered before we moved on to D, E, and F.
That's huge. All back to communication.
Yeah,
And
absolutely.
and there's just so many uncomfortable conversations that, like, you know what, deployment, best time to have this conversation. You're already talking about your will. You might as well just bring money up as well.
Yeah. Yeah. That's true.
Kick it off on a good note.
So Jen, we've been going for almost an hour now. I just wanted to, and I love, talking about like how the military spouse becomes the CFO, the chief financial officer of the family when the service member's deployed. And, I love enabling military spouses to feel confident, right, about the thrift savings plan and about all the military credit card benefits that are available. Your husband's a reservist. And so I just wanted to talk about, in your specific situation, which I'm sure is applying to a lot of people right now, like, what are you thinking about in terms of benefits and, he's going to be getting activated, like, what are you thinking about in terms of money coming up on his deployment?
Yeah. So, well, he mentioned the other day, this credit card that he was looking at, and I was like, do not just wait for your orders to get on to that credit card so that they check you whenever you're active, so we don't get that fee, which we, since in the last year since getting out, have looked at our credit cards to assess whether or not they're worth keeping. And actually, a lot of ours are really worth keeping, whether we get dinged or not. But yeah, honestly, I don't know too much all of the little tips and tricks and hacks of like what I need to be doing, because I know that we are TRICARE changes, which is huge because I do see that hit our account every month. We pay like what, $280, $260 for reserve TRICARE. Now we're going to be not paying that, right?
Right.
Yep.
Yeah,
So
that's right.
That, and then again, the credit cards, and then now we will have BAH, which in the reserves, I heard, is based off of actually where you live, not where you're stationed out of.
Gotcha.
It's based on zip code, which is wild. A lot going into it on the reserve side of the house.
Yeah. I mean, the things I would, want if my partner was going out the door, the things that I would be thinking about is just some of like the practical things, right? SGLI, making sure that they got the maximum $500,000, because I think it's like, I can't remember maybe $29 a month, but that's going to be reimbursed if they're in a combat zone. So they're not even paying for that. So that's an easy one. Another one is VRED, right? So I'm sure the other branches might call it something different, but just they'll be doing all this stuff anyways as they're getting ready to deploy, but just have a copy yourself of like all of their documents before they go out the door. So you're not on the phone or texting them saying, hey, where's this? Like, I need a copy of your orders. Make sure that you have paper copies and digital copies of everything before they go out the door. And if they're already out the door, we have most people aren't places without Wi-Fi, right? Like most deployed people have access to Wi-Fi at least every couple of days, and just follow up and say, hey, I need some documentation. The other thing, on the credit card side is you want to wait until you're showing up as eligible in the Military Lending Act database. So you can just Google MLA database and you can run, it's called like a single record search. It's going to ask you a couple things like what company you work for and like what your address is. Just put in your squadron if you like. Nobody's checking this. It's just being recorded in a database. Like nobody's actually looking at this. But what it's going to do is it's going to pull up a PDF. It's going to say the DMDC, the Department of Defense Manpower Database Center, either has or has not a record of this person being eligible for Military Lending Act. And you could run it on yourself too as the military spouse. So as soon as they get 30 days order, and as soon as those orders start, so let's say their orders start, 1 June and they run for 60 days, right? We'll say that, for example. So on 3 June or 4 June, go in, check the database for you, for the active duty service member, and for your spouse, and see if you're eligible. And as long as you're eligible, you can go apply for American Express, Chase, Citi, and U.S. Bank, and Bank of America, and you can get your annual fees waived on the credit card. So, do you know what credit card he was thinking about?
Oh my gosh, I think it was a hotel credit card.
Okay, yeah. So, like for instance, the big 4 hotel credit cards are the IHG from Chase, the Hyatt from Chase, then there's the Amex Hilton Honors, American Express Hilton Honors Aspire card. And then there's the American Express Marriott card. And So like some of these cards, have like $400, $500, I think the Bonvoy card has like a $700 annual fee, $695.
Really? Sure.
And as long as you're showing as eligible in the Military Lending Act database, you can apply for this card, and they're going to automatically check the database, and then your fees are going to be automatically waived. Now, let's say that you have card accounts, like that he opened when he was active duty. Now he's gone off active duty. He's starting to get annual fees charged. You can also apply for SCRA, Service Member Civil Relief Act benefits on those accounts with his new active duty orders, and those fees should be waived as well. And then if you're quick about this, and the Capital One Venture X card, $395 annual fee, and they don't waive the fee if you open it while you're on active duty. But if you open it before active duty starts, they waive the fee under SCRA. So the trick is, like, if you're about to commission, right, or you're about to go to boot camp, or you're in the reserves and you're about to activate, you open the card while you're a civilian, you'll probably have to pay the annual fee for the first year, but you submit your SCRA request, and then the fees waived for the following year. Especially if you're in the reserves, that's a good way to get at least 1 year of annual fee waiver. But if you're active duty, then you have to go off active duty, open the card, and then go back on active duty.
That is so crazy. Okay, while we've been talking, my husband just texted me because he's doing his deployment line currently. Hey, you need to text somebody for this. We get $40 a month per kid for childcare, so $180 a month while I'm deployed.
There you go.
So there you go. It's called Give Parents a Break, GPAB.
GPAB, Give Parents a Break. Love that. Yeah. So there's tons of resources out there, and a lot of them aren't very well advertised. Military One Source is a pretty good resource. Your social media pages.
Yeah, we do have a deployment checklist. You can get it for free. Just insert your email. So just look up Wise the Armed Forces deployment checklist, and it runs through all of these things and should hopefully help you out. I think going back before we sign off to the CFO thing, we really just try to empower military spouses. No, you don't have to know what every single acronym means. You don't have to know what your spouse does in their day-to-day job, but being able to feel like you are an equal member in your family and moving the family mission forward in military life, that is what we want to empower people towards. And for example, if you are a stay-at-home wife or mom due to PCSs or military life and saying, I might not bring in income, but I manage our income, that is still helping your family out financially in ways that could even be greater than if you have an income yourself. So give yourself some credit. You are a very important part of your family.
Absolutely. I think the whole notion of you have to bring in a W-2 or 1099 income into a family to add value is completely outdated. We should just throw it away, right? And you don't need to have kids either. You are adding value to your family just by being there, just by existing. And even if it's a family of two or a family of one, right? And that's the other thing too, is if you're single and you're listening to this and you're like, I don't have a military spouse, that's fine. You still can look after yourself. You can spend money on yourself. You can set money aside, and then you can use those resources to look after your loved ones, to look after your pets, look after maybe a future spouse or a future partner for you. And I think that it's just like you're saying there, you can add so much value by keeping the home front running, and it might be chaotic and it might be scary and it might feel like every day you're juggling 20 balls in the air and you're dropping 19 of them. But I think the best thing to do is keep going, reach out for help when you need it. Check out these amazing resources, Wives of the Armed Forces Facebook page and the Instagram. These are people that have been there, done that, and they get it. They understand that when you show up to that first duty station and you're in the middle of America and you don't know anybody, that's a scary place to be. And you don't know where to turn for help, and you don't even know where the grocery store is, right? And you're terrified. And the only person you know is your spouse, and they've just gone off to work for 8 to 10 hours a day. And they seem like they're having a great time because they know all these people already, and you're just trying to survive day to day. So reach out. You're not alone. Find a community, first online and then in person. Make it real. Build those human connections. Jen, we're going to have you back on the show again. I think there's a lot more for us to talk about. I'm often very passionate about, and like you and your team are, about empowering military spouses. This could be the best 4, 6, 10, 20, 30, 40 years of your life being connected to the military and afterwards too. My wife has never expected to be a military spouse, right? That was just never something that she never thought would be in her life, and she is so proud. And some of her best friends have come out of the military, and she has such a love and respect for the military, even now that we've been separated from the military for 4 years. So love what you guys are doing over there. Go check it out. Wives of the Armed Forces.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Thanks so much for tuning in to this episode of the Military Money Manual podcast. If you're enjoying the show, please feel free to rate, subscribe, and leave a review wherever you listen to your podcasts. This helps others find the show, and we really appreciate it. Thanks again for tuning in, and we'll catch you in the next episode.
The views and opinions presented here are those of the speakers and do not necessarily represent the views of the DoD or its components. Reference to any commercial products or services does not constitute DoD endorsement of those products or services.